Today I'm thrilled to welcome Julie Saul to Rise to Prominence. Julie built and successfully exited Jenrick Engineering after 20 years at the helm. With her extensive experience, Julie has a wealth of knowledge to share on scaling, exiting and avoiding the common pitfalls faced by recruitment agencies. Now she's dedicating her time to supporting other recruitment agencies with growth and scaling strategies, alongside pursuing her passion projects in the wellness space. She's definitely a woman of many hats. Welcome to the podcast, Julie.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So let's talk about Jenrick Engineering. How did that start?
Wow. That was 24 years ago. I had worked in recruitment. I've been in recruitment for 7 years. And I was actually part of a business that went through a sale, which was an interesting process. And what became very apparent to me as the sale process happened with this company was that the path that they were taking and the avenue, the aspects of where they were going, I didn't feel aligned to it anymore. We were very much a business that was focused on quality and focused on building relationships and focused on creating a complete awareness of the clients that we were dealing with. And the business was bought with the focus on taking it into a very, very large, fast-paced corporate growth. It just didn't feel right for me. I felt like all of the ethos, all of the learning that I'd gained in the time that I'd been with the company previously was being put to one side. And for me, that was our absolute strength. And then as these things happen, very serendipitously, there was a magazine presented to me. And in this magazine, there was an advert basically advertising for managing directors. And at the time, I'd been a branch manager. I'd sold branches for this business and had the most profitable branch in the business. So I knew how to run branches and recruit and train really good salespeople and to offer great recruitment solutions. But I didn't see myself as an MD in any way, shape or form. But I kept getting drawn to this advert. And so ultimately, after going into work one day and just really going, this isn't for me anymore. It's not what I want. But also knowing that I didn't particularly want to go and work for another recruitment business, I decided to give this company a call. And they introduced me to Simon Holdings, who ultimately financed me to set up the northern division of Jenrick, which became Jenrick Engineering. And within 8 weeks of me sitting down and having conversation with the MD of Simon Holdings, who was Patrick Murphy, I had left my career of 7 years and was starting a venture up on my own, basically. Well, not entirely on my own, obviously, because I had the support of Simon Holdings. I started in an office in Burton-on-Trent with literally an office because we hadn't ordered the furniture and we hadn't got the telephones, had one telephone. And I sat on the floor with the local, at the time, this was way before the days of social media and the internet even. I had a newspaper with all the local adverts where they were all advertising for members of staff, and an advert that I'd placed for recruiters. And I sat on the floor with my phone and I started making calls, and that was the start of the northern division of Jenrick Engineering.
Oh, that's exciting for kind of your first kind of step into doing something on your own. Yeah. So that was 24 years ago, as you said?
Yeah, it was October 2000.
What did that journey look like? So you went from, sitting on the floor with your phone book to exiting a very successful recruitment business 20 years later. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, it was quite the journey, quite the ride. So I started with the one office in Burton-on-Trent, and I never had any doubt. I knew I could build successful sales teams because I'd previously done that. So for me, there wasn't any doubt that the business was going to be successful. I think the key learning at the time was that it was me. I was at the helm, and I had this depth of autonomy that I'd never had previously. There was no one really to report into. So the book stopped with me. I had obviously the support of Simon Holdings, and collectively we would draw together plans for expansion and so on. But ultimately, it was my gig, which was both exciting and quite terrifying at times as well. So we started with the office and very quickly built it up to a team of 4 or 5 in the office in Burton-on-Trent. We made profit in the first year, which was over and above our business plan. And we just went from strength to strength. I opened a second office in Northampton 2 years later, and I attracted in some people that had worked with me previously, who were incredible. I mean, that was one of the things that I was very blessed with the whole time I had the business, was that I was very fortunate at attracting some incredible recruiters. And we supported one another. I mean, we had our ups and downs. It was like, like any business, any family. But the crux of the business was the people that worked for us. So we opened the office in Northampton 2 years later. And then for a period of time, I had a branch in Camberley as well, which was near our head office in Walton-on-Thames. So, at one point I was sort of up and down the motorway over the 3 branches. I was also running a business with my husband at the time, which was interesting. And we just worked together really well. We understood what our message was. And our message was that we wanted to be the recruiter of choice. We wanted to work with companies as an extension of their business. We didn't want to be seen as an unnecessary evil. We wanted to really get to know the clients that we worked with and understand what problems they had and how we could solve those problems for them. So we took an awful lot of time working with our clients, building relationships, building rapport, constantly looking at ourselves, looking at how we could improve, looking at where we'd perhaps not failed, but where we could expand our expertise to offer better service to our clients. So we were constantly reviewing what we could do differently. And very quickly we became renowned in the marketplace for the quality of service that we provided. And I guess that just spreads, doesn't it? People talk and they go into different businesses, and then the next thing you know, you're opening a new client. Our candidates, the feedback that we got from our candidates, because candidate care was so important to us, was excellent. And we used to get people referring other people to us. I think one year we used to always look at our sort of ratios and placements and how we got them and so on. And one year we had 26% of our placements came from recommendation. And that was people saying, you've got to work with these people. And that was the same for temporary and permanent. And, we called them contractors because it was more contract working within the engineering, but it was temporary recruitment. And, they became an extension of us. And when we had people that worked for us on a temporary basis for the whole period of time that was at the business. In fact, I went to a function about a month ago where I met up with a contractor who'd worked for us. It was our reputation, really. It was the strength of our reputation.
Yeah, and I think that's what all recruitment agencies aspire to be, that quality of service, that client partner. They're not a transactional recruiter. Like, what is the one piece of advice you'd give to those recruitment agencies that are maybe struggling with that, getting to that point?
Yeah, the transactional recruitment, for me, it was almost like a death sentence to relationships. We never ever went in just to make the placement. We always wanted to understand more about the client and how we could add benefit to their process. And I think it's take the time. I see now with a lot of people that I'm working with that they've stopped visiting their clients. They've stopped walking around the factory and understanding what they manufacture, how they manufacture, or around the offices to understand the environment that the people that are going to join are going to be working within. They've stopped understanding what the ethos of the end client is, and how by providing the right person they can expand on that, and actually by providing the wrong person, how detrimental that can be. And I guess not taking responsibility in that can sully the reputation of recruitment businesses, because, you know, the biggest feedback that we ever got from clients who didn't want to use recruitment agencies was purely that. Well, you know, we go through this process, we pay a fee, and then the candidate doesn't work out for one reason or another, and the recruiter doesn't want to talk to us about why that went wrong, about where they were in it, where we were in it, and actually coming together to conclude and see how they can improve the process moving forward, understanding that there's two parties involved on any recruitment process. And so, yeah, I would just advise them to take the time to get to know the companies, know what they want, and offer them what they want, and be proactive in your understanding of both your clients and your candidates, knowing that if you build up an understanding and a ability to connect with the company, they'll come to you over and above anybody.
Sounds simple, doesn't it?
It does sound simple. It's not quite so simple in practice. It takes time and takes patience. And yeah, I think the key thing is being open to feedback. And owning when you could have done something differently, and offering solutions based on that.
So 20 years, long time. Obviously, a few societal issues that happened over that 20 years. How did you weather the storm, as it were, over that period of time? Because there must have been real lows and real highs. What was kind of the thing that got you through those bad periods?
Tenacity. I know that sounds like a really obvious answer. I am incredibly tenacious. I will always find a way. I will find a solution. That doesn't mean to say that I didn't move through an incredible, intense periods of fear, of when, like, literally something would appear in the business, and maybe a client's complaint or a candidate's complaint or an employment issue with the team that I'd never faced before. And when you're faced with something where you've got no sort of reference point, it can literally bring up an awful lot of fear. And certainly, I think over the years, I mean, bearing in mind, I started in recruitment at the back end of a recession. Then we weathered the 2008 bank crashes and COVID, and the ups and downs in between. It was the core element, and the way that we got through was by feeling the fear and actually going, okay, this is like big, this is something we're not used to. But then actually coming together and communicating and allowing everybody to have part in how we're going to overcome problems, and seeking advice. And a couple of times I had coaches working with me, and just pulling in resources to help you find the path, find the way, find the solutions, and knowing that once you've expanded and you've learnt from that, it will just lend you so much strength moving forward. So yeah, I think it is. It's that we had some incredible highs, and when we were all working together, we were all aligned, we were all on the same path, and we were all working towards the same end goal. You felt it. And then we had some periods where all of a sudden, a big curveball would literally banjax you out of nowhere and take your breath away. And I think in those moments, that's when the coming together was really important. And trusting that you can get through it and get out the other side wiser and more expansive.
Yeah, so when was the point that you're like, no, this is my time here, it's coming to an end, I'm thinking I want to exit the business? When did you know that that's what you wanted to do?
Well, it was a collective decision because obviously I was part of a group and there were other managing directors who were also running businesses. And we all came together, and I think we all pretty much at the same point said, we have taken the business as far as we feel we can take it. And it needed to expand. It was ready to expand. We'd been very successful in all of the divisions, and we'd had some incredible results. We had some incredible billers and some incredible people who had all been with us for a very, very long period of time. I think my average tenure in my particular part of the business was like 18 years. So it was, how do you keep somebody who's been with you for 18 or 20 or 21 years interested? And it was becoming a bit Groundhog Day, I think, for a lot of people. And there was this element of it being a comfortable place to be, but also that they weren't getting the expansion that they needed that was going to allow them to grow in their own life. So the business needed to grow. For me, at that particular point, I think I felt I had given so much to the business, so much to the people within the business. And I was juggling being a single mom to one child, running a business. And I actually sat and I thought, I want something for me. I want something now where I can change the equilibrium, where I can still do what I love doing, but it can be more flexible, more on my terms. And I wanted the people within the business to have the opportunities that, almost by me being there, was stopping that capacity for growth. So yeah, I think that was the crucial point for me. It was, I felt I'd achieved everything that I could.
Yeah, so just to go back to what you said there, that the average tenure of your recruitment consultants was 18 years, I think that's a stat that any recruitment agency would probably be thinking, that's very impressive. What would you say is the one thing that kept people there? Like I said, recruiters are known for jumping around, trying different agencies. It's not that common that you've got people there for that amount of time. What was it about Jenrick that kept people in the business?
I think we just really valued our people. And we did. We absolutely valued everybody. We knew everybody. We knew the nuances of their lives. We knew that, what worked for one person might not work for another. And we supported them, and we cared. I know, it sounds really twee, doesn't it? But we genuinely cared.
There's plenty of people that don't. So.
Yeah. And, we genuinely cared for our people. And I think that made them very loyal. And we were loyal to them as well. So, yeah, it wasn't a one-size-fits-all kind of scenario. We were very flexible in how we worked with the individuals, and we rewarded them. And we had some of the most unusual sort of perks, I guess, like, for instance, having their car washed every month. and it was interesting because when the sale of the business went through, they were like, one of the questions was, you do what for them every month? Right, well, we asked them what they wanted and what would motivate them, and having their cars washed was one of the things. So, and I guess it was simple little things like that.
Yeah.
I'm your typical salesperson, really, I guess. It is all reward. It's the more I do, the more reward I get, the more I want to do. And I guess I applied that with the people that worked with us. So if I could find a way to reward them, and it could be something as simple as, one girl was getting married and she wanted a pair of Jimmy Choo shoes. So I gave her an incentive. She got the shoes. It was some really unusual, I guess, rewards from that perspective. And then, other people were motivated with extra time off. Other people were motivated by earning more money. So we were able to be flexible with our people. and acknowledging that they were the business. Without them, we didn't have a business. Without them being part of the growth of the business and allowing them to have their say, we weren't able to function. So I think it was probably that.
I mean, again, it sounds simple, but it's not in reality. And I think that's a really actionable piece of feedback that anyone can kind of take into another agency and implement kind of straight away. So just to go back to the exit, what did that process look like? If we've got other recruitment agencies that are thinking about as exiting, one, how do you have those conversations? Where do you go and what do you do? And then what does the actual process look like?
I can only obviously speak for what our process looked like. And our process was interesting because we had invested pretty much half of our lives in it. All of the directors had like literally put their heart and soul in, and the people within the business. So for us, it was about doing our absolute utmost to find as close a cultural match as we possibly could on the information that we were given. And so that was where we started. It was more about the cultural match to how the company that was purchasing us would look after and incorporate our team over and above what we could actually get for the business, which ultimately fell in line with what it was that we wanted. But we started again with the most important thing that to us was our people. And we had somebody that actually went out and approached lots of different companies on our behalf. So they brokered the sale. When we were presented with 5 or 6, well, I think there was about 30 or 40 people that were sort of interested and wanted information. And then we sort of thinned that down to sort of 5 or 6. We presented to 3 or 4, and then we got 2 offers. And one of them didn't feel aligned to us, and one of them did at that point in time. And so we started to progress with that one, which was ultimately the business that we sold to. But the actual process of selling the business and untangling the connections of 23 years of, 23 years by the time we exited at the time, it was 21 years for me, and more for Simon. And so a lot of, bearing in mind that, Simon, it was his dad's business that he'd set up in 1967. So there was over 55 years of like connection to the company. And I think that was the hardest thing, was the incremental letting go, and actually what that brought up for us all as part of the process. And then, of course, on top of that, you have the whole, and we were sticklers for process. But when you start getting questions, and do they ask you questions? I mean, they ask you questions about a transaction that you did like 15, 20 years ago. And you're like, oh, wow, I'm not sure. I need to go and find out. They want to know everything about, like, literally your inside leg measurement. It's every piece of information that you ever have retained about your company. They want to know. And for all the right reasons. So it was an interesting process of almost like self-reflection across the company. And for me, what was really surprising was, I think as a business leader, you're always looking to see what you can do better. You're always focusing on the things you didn't quite get as well as you wanted to get. You're always focusing on the areas that perhaps you feel you failed at. And we forget to acknowledge what we have achieved. And we had to put a timeline together for the 21 years of the business. And actually that process was really cathartic. In the respect of, you got the opportunity to look back and go, oh my God, look, we did that and we did that and we did that and we did that. And so it was both time consuming, but also rewarding, I guess, to be able to look over the company that we'd built and actually what we had achieved and what we were passing on, the legacy that we were passing on to another business. So yeah, it was an interesting process. And equally, and this is the interesting thing, so once you start doing these things, it's like all of the skeletons come out of the woodwork, things that you feel like you've dealt with, that all of a sudden then just like the final embers of them kind of comes up so that you can put them to bed and not have to pass them on to the next company. And that process was interesting. The other part of the process that was really, I say difficult to deal with, but it wasn't, it was just unexpected, was that because you're going through this process of effectively, it's like the biggest sales pitch you will ever present. You know, when you go in and you want to win tenders and things like that, there's always that element of, I want to win the tender, but you're selling your life's work, basically. And throughout that process, I've got to keep everything organised, I've got to keep on top of everything, I've got to be uber diligent, even though I'm already very diligent. And then, of course, as you're going through that process, the government throw in IR35 changes. You'll have an employee issue that you've never, ever experienced before in the whole of your career. And you're like, really? Now? And everything just seems amplified. Everything just seems amplified. So, yeah, it's an interesting process.
So what would be your kind of one or several pieces of advice to other founders or owners that were about to go through the similar process or thinking about doing it? What's the one thing that they can do to make that process a little bit more streamlined?
Have somebody, I mean, I'm pitching myself a little bit here, but, you know, yeah, have somebody, whoever it is, that's completely detached from the emotions of selling the business to lean into. To even if it's just somebody you can talk to about your frustrations, somebody that you can talk to just to check that actually what you're seeing is what you're seeing. Having somebody that has that unbiased perspective where there's nothing in it for them to gain, whether the sale of the business goes through or not, to keep you aligned and in check. Because as you're going through this process, particularly if it's a company you've developed yourself for so long, you've got all these emotional ties to it, you can lose perspective. So have somebody that you can sort of help you gain perspective. The other thing I would say is, I wouldn't say breathe, literally breathe whilst you're going through the process. Take time to take stock and double check everything, because you feel like you're being scrutinised, which you are as part of the sale process. But it's really important to scrutinise the person that's purchasing the business as well. So in the same way as they need to sort of reference who you are, to almost so that you're proving your worth to be purchased, I would absolutely advise that you delve deep into the company that you're integrating your business into. And when curveballs come, and they will, several of them, take time to take stock, because in the desire to gain to the end goal, you can miss elements that can then cause you pain further on. So it's just that the knee-jerk reaction. It's like, take time to just take the step back and trust that it will go through in the way it's meant to at the time it's meant to, because it brings up all of your control programs. Literally, you want to take control, you want to make things happen, you want them happening at the same time. Yeah, it literally is the ultimate test of trust.
So from, I guess, exploring buyers to the sale going through, how long did that process take in the end?
Do you know what? It actually went through really rapidly. So we decided in, I think it was August 2020, which was right in the middle of COVID. So you can imagine COVID was probably the thing that tipped us over the edge, along with a few other personal things that were going on for all of the directors at that point. Everybody was sort of saying it's not the right time, we're coming out of COVID. But we'd actually performed really solidly during COVID. So again, we knew we had a solid brand to sell. So from August 2020, we got on the offer in, I believe, the end of February 2021. So that's when the actual offer was made, and we completed in December 2021. So we did it in the space of 12 months.
Yeah, that is quick.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And if I'm honest with you, I think we were hoping it would go through faster than that.
Yeah, next day, please.
Yeah, like the next day. But yeah, so it completed literally, believe it or not, on the 20th of December 2021, which is the day it is today.
Oh, well, congratulations on your anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the completion day, which was interesting, just before Christmas. So
nice big Christmas. Fun Christmas.
It was
a relief.
Well, it's like a double-edged sword of relief, but then you've got to go and deliver the message to
tell everyone,
basically your family. It's like, I'm leaving you kind of thing. And they're like,
a breakup.
Yeah, it really is. It has all of that same emotion if you're that emotionally connected to your business. And that's not to be underestimated. I mean, that for me was probably the biggest challenge, was to go in and talk to people who had been incredibly loyal to me for so very, very long, and explain to them that decisions had been made that were going to affect them, that we'd not been able to talk to them about because of non-disclosures.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was tough. It was tough. But also, there was an element of, okay, I've actually done this. I stayed with the business for another 12 months, and then I stayed on as a consultant for another 12 months. So I actually didn't completely disengage from the business for a further 2 years, which was nice. It was nice on one level, because obviously I got to support people through all of the integration into a different business. Watching somebody and allowing somebody else to have your baby was a whole different ballgame.
God, yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, that was interesting. But again, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about other businesses, and I learned an awful lot about what to do and what not to do, which enables me to support other people now as they're going through the process.
So over that time, was there, I guess, any massive failures? And I know not necessarily you want to admit to them, or was there a pivotal moment where something went wrong that you really did learn something from, that would be good advice to share?
You mean overall in the business, or as part of the sale process?
Overall
in the business. Okay. Right. So the word failure really brings up an awful lot in me, because I literally, it sits there. I'm like, ugh.
Learning curve, moments.
Expansion. Let's use the word expansion. There were lots of lessons over that period, you can imagine. And I think for me personally was my overbearing need to please everybody. I'm very much about making sure everybody's happy, making sure everybody gets what they want, and not saying no when I really should have done. There were certain ventures that I did as part of the business, personally in my own life, having another business that I was running alongside Jenrick, which was my husband's business at the time, not ending that 2 or 3 years before I should have done. So procrastinating on making decisions in the hope that they would turn the corner was probably my biggest learning. And actually just being brutally honest with where I'm at in any given moment, and looking, am I looking to save something that actually needs to dissolve so it can allow and make space for something better? So yeah, that's probably the biggest learning, was actually it's okay to say no, and to call an end to things, because they are holding us back from being better than we actually could be, by this over tenacity to make things right.
Yeah. So fast forward to today. What are you up to? What's post Jenrick? What's life like for you?
So the last 18 months for me have been really interesting. So I literally, when I say left Jenrick, I finished my period of consultancy with them. And so I didn't have that connectivity with the business anymore. And for about 6 months, it was like operating in an abyss. I kind of was like floating around going, who am I? What do I do now?
Yeah.
So I took the opportunity to train in a variety of different aspects. So quite conversely to what I'd ever done previously, although actually it lends very well to what I do now. I trained in some holistic modalities. So I learnt Reiki, I learnt sound therapy. I went and I still do run wellness retreats. So for me, it was all about the path and the journey that I'd had with Jenrick. Probably the biggest thing that I learned, going back to your previous question, was that burning out, if I burnt out, then that affected everybody. And so I'm really passionate about supporting people who are pushing themselves too hard, who don't know how to say no, and to understand where that comes from and to release that so that they can be more empowered in everything that they do. So I learnt an awful lot of different modalities to do with that. And then I realised that I had so much more to offer and started connecting with, as part of my exit actually, going through the time when I was exiting Jenrick, I ended up connecting with other recruitment businesses who wanted me to come and basically observe their business, which is effectively what I did, which was really, really strange because it was like people would come in and go through my business, tell me what's great, tell me what needs to change. And I was like, imposter syndrome. I was like, well, who am I to do that? But actually, it was beautiful that these people trusted me to be able to come in and be objective about what was going really well for them, where the blocks were in their business and what they needed to do to change that so that they could expand. And I learnt that because of the, I guess, experiences that I had that had prevented me from expanding when I was with Jenrick on many levels. I now go and I work with companies on that basis, and it depends on the company and their requirements. So sometimes I will go in and I'll be working with the senior leadership team, and we'll be doing strategy, and we'll be looking at how they can expand, whether they need to gain financial support to do that, or whether they can do that on their own merit. Looking at the teams, looking at their strengths, looking at their weaknesses, looking at their opportunities, their threats, and putting in place action plans to support the growth of the business based on their ultimate plans. Some people that I'm working with, they literally haven't really ever stopped to do that. They've just rode the crest of a very successful wave, and you know, I did that at times in Jenrick. You know, it's sort of like there is no strategy here, it's all going really well until it doesn't, and then so understanding and helping people to put in place processes that support them and get them to the point where if they do decide that they want to exit a business, everything that they need is in place so that they're not in that almost panic state of going, oh, I want to sell. Now I've got to do all of these things and I've got to pull them into place. It's like having all of your ducks in a row so that when a client comes in who potentially is interested in purchasing your business, you can go, there you go.
Half the job's already done.
This is us. What else do you need to know?
Yeah.
And because I went through that process of literally being interrogated, I can help to show them what they will be asked and what they need to put in place. And it doesn't always mean an exit, interestingly. What I'm finding is some people think that they want to exit, but actually they've lost their passion for the business because of things that have happened, and they've not been able to have that external support to understand actually these things happen. or they have lost their way, lost their vision, and they just need showing what the opportunities are. And then when they see them, they can go, actually, do you know what? I love my business. No, I don't want to exit. It could be that there are people in the business that want to exit and people that want to stay, and that it doesn't have to be a complete exit scenario. And just showing them what the opportunities are for that. And then ultimately, if they do want to exit, what they should be looking for, both from the purchaser of the business, but also for themselves and for their team. Because the key thing is, if you are the business, you haven't got a business to sell.
I mean, we talk about that a lot from a marketing perspective. If it's all kind of personal branding and marketing you, then there's no value in the actual brand and the business itself. So,
yeah,
very much aligned on that point, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the books that I read right at the beginning of my career in recruitment was the Jim Collins' Good to Great. And in my typical style, because I tend to read books and get to the point where I'm interested and I've got all the info that I want from it and then never actually quite get to the end of it. But the key thing that I got from that was that the best businesses are the ones that carry on when the leaders aren't there anymore. And of course, you have such an instrumental part as the leader of your business. It takes time for it to level out. There will be ups and downs when you leave. You know, people will go, oh my God, this isn't what I signed up for. I mean, the whole reason I ended up setting my own business was exactly for that reason. But ultimately, the core of the business can carry on if you've got your strategy and your ethos and your branding and your team around you who can carry that on when you exit. And then, of course, there's the letting go part, which is...
You can't teach that. You've just got to do it.
Yeah, it's that. And I would say it's the hardest thing, is that letting go and allowing somebody else to take what was yours onto the next level. And you've got to be ready to do that.
Well, thank you so much for being on the Rise to Prominence podcast today. We ask all of our guests one final question. Is there anyone you would nominate who has been an inspiration to you in terms of their success that would be great to come on the podcast as a guest for us?
Absolutely. So in a very strange turn of events, some of the holistic work that I do is actually out of where my old offices were when I ran the business at Jenrick. So what was my office where I ran the business is now a room where I do Reiki and sound therapy. And the lady that has taken on the property, Alice Stringfern, for her company Alice & Co. She's 30, I think she's 32, 33, and she started her career as a dental nurse, fell in love with a certain skin brand product that was helping her, and now has built a whole brand off the back of it and a company. And I just find her really inspirational. She's so full of fresh ideas, tenacity, and such a capable businesswoman. I think she would be really interesting for you guys to have part of.
Well, I'm excited to have her on. But thank you so much for today. It's been really, really interesting chatting to you, and wish you all the best, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you so much.